and fictional ones to dislodge her. Well, it's time now to bring in our political panel. I'm joined by Liberal Senator Holly Hughes and Shadow Defence Industry Minister Matt Keogh. Thanks to both of you for joining me. Let's start first of all on what happened in the Senate earlier this week. Holly Hughes, what's your understanding of what happened that night?
Look, I didn't even see Sam that night, and you can see me in the video a couple of seats over. We had two nights in the Senate that ran, one just before 11 p.m, one after 11 p.m, 2 nights running. I can imagine for the National Party it's been quite a stressful week. Sam has been unwell. I know she was at the doctor this morning, and it wouldn't be the first time prior to a pre-selection stories that aren't flattering to alternate candidates or preferred candidates or current members has gone public. So I think it's really unfortunate that this is what's been said. It is a very tiring time sometimes at the end of some of these really long nights where you are constantly running in and out of the chamber. But I didn't see Sam. I certainly didn't see anything that indicated that she was intoxicated in any way.
Regardless of what happened in this particular case, Matt Keogh, do you think that there is an issue with alcohol consumption in Parliament more broadly?
I don't think there is a broad alcohol consumption problem in Parliament. I think there's certainly been instances where alcohol consumption in Parliament has been over the top. I'm not saying this is the case. I haven't seen this video and it's a matter for the Senator to respond in this circumstance. But I think in the whole, actually, in my experience, and our sitting hours are a lot less, I should say, in the House of Representatives.
Half days for
that there is. I wouldn't go quite that far, Senator, but I don't think we see a broad alcohol problem actually in the federal Parliament. And I know some people have, often comment about this. I think it should be noted that the bar in Parliament has long been a childcare centre, actually. So, and that's a good thing.
Earlier this year, Holly Hughes, two of your colleagues, Katie Allen and Sarah Henderson, said that politicians should face alcohol testing. Would you support that?
No, I think that's probably going a step too far. But I agree with what Matt's saying. I don't think there is an extensive problem with this. Obviously, there has been instances in the past. I know there was a senator that had a jostle with one of our senators, which led to him leaving the Senate. So you're right, there has been instances, but I don't think it's something that's systemic or highly problematic. And you are talking about sometimes people sitting into the very wee hours of the morning. So, having one glass of wine with dinner, I don't think is particularly problematic.
Matt Keogh, do you think that there should be alcohol testing?
I don't think we've seen instances that justify having to implement that additional level of work. But of course, every member of Parliament has to face their electorate at every election and justify their behaviour and how they, not only in how they vote when they're here, but how they behave as a member of Parliament as well.
Let's move on to the COVID-19 situation in New South Wales. Holly Hughes, you're a senator for that state. Do you think that it's time for a lockdown in Sydney?
No, not at all. In New South Wales, we just don't do it that way. We like to keep our economy open. If you think about it, there's now 36 cases linked to the entire cluster. There was 11 cases today, 10 of which are already in isolation and known to be close contacts of those who'd already tested positive. Now, there was unfortunately 19 people die in the UK yesterday of COVID. We had 16,000 positive tests in the UK yesterday. And, they're back open and things are happening. We need to learn to live with the virus. There has never been an elimination strategy. I think some of the states, and certainly Matt's state of WA, has advocated for more of an elimination style strategy. But if we go down that path, we're going to end up closed off to the world and each other for a really long time. The most important thing is to get vaccinated. And we're seeing 140,000 people were vaccinated yesterday. If the same number get vaccinated today, we will hit 7 million doses of vaccine. So we are starting to see those numbers ramp up exponentially, and it's important that we do that as quickly as possible. But no, not a lockdown. I think Gladys is acting with logic, not panic, and keeping the state's economy moving and not unnecessarily punishing people. I feel my heart breaks for the tourism operators in Tasmania, and also South Australia and some of the others, where a lot of New South Wales families were planning to go, who've now been locked out, and it's another school holidays that will be lost for these tourism operators.
Matt Keogh, if New South Wales gets on top of this outbreak, and everyone is hoping that it does, will it show that there is an alternative to lockdowns and that states don't need to go down that path like we've seen recently in states including WA?
Well, as we've seen, the New South Wales Premier said today that this is the scariest period during the whole of COVID that New South Wales is facing. And there's one key reason for that, and it's the federal government's failure to get the vaccine rollout working as quickly as it should be and to deliver fit-for-purpose quarantine. We've seen all of these outbreaks come out of what was a temporary quarantine structure. We need fit-for-purpose quarantine. The vaccine rollout, yes, it's speeding up, but it's so far behind where it should be. That's how you get to a position where we can be properly opening up and seeing the availability of coming back to normalcy. But in Western Australia, because of the different approach that's been taken there are now no COVID restrictions within Western Australia. Life is back to normal in Western Australia, and it demonstrates some of the differences in outcomes and approach, and we've seen it in the economic growth outcome for Western Australia as well because of that different approach. But until the Morrison government actually gets this vaccination rollout properly going, we're not going to see the opportunity for states to properly get back to normal across the country.
The AstraZeneca vaccine was supposed to be the workhorse of our rollout. Instead, it's only now recommended for people over the age of 60, and we're told it will be phased out later this year. Holly Hughes, did Australia pin too much of its hopes on this one vaccine?
Well, AstraZeneca is just one of 4 vaccines, and we will have over 2 million doses per week of Pfizer coming in by October, Moderna by the end of the year, and there's another one that's coming at the beginning of next year. So there will be 4 vaccines that are available. I think, 2020 hindsight's a great thing, and everyone being, lounge armchair epidemiologist is one thing as well. But this is unprecedented times. Who would have thought in March when this broke out that we'd have an option of 4 vaccines? So it's been, incredible to see the production of the vaccines. They've been made in incredibly quick timeframes, and the rollouts are continuing. And if you look at now the exponential increases of how many days it's taking to get to that next million shot of doses, we're talking now less than 10 days to get to each million lot of doses of vaccine that are being delivered. This has been reflected across the world. Every single country, when they have rolled out their vaccine, it's taken more time at the beginning, and then it ramps up exponentially, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. The rollout has been conducted absolutely with the guidance and advice of either Professor Murphy or Professor Kelly, and done in the best possible way, working with the TGA and ATAGI. So it's following the health advice. It's making sure Australians are safe and making sure that the economy is getting back on track at the same time.
Matt Keogh, Labor has been very critical of the vaccine rollout. Is Labor undermining confidence in the program?
No, not at all, because we're trying to say more people should be getting vaccinated faster. And Holly's point is absolutely right. If the government here had started faster, we would be much further along than we are now. We are able to ramp it up, but we started late, it took us longer, and we didn't have access to the diversity of vaccines. Some of those won't come until next year or the end of this year. The government was afforded the opportunity of getting in earlier with Pfizer when the government was saying, we're going to be at the front of the queue. Instead, it literally took itself out of the queue, moved back to the end of the queue, and put 100 other countries in front of us. If that decision had not been taken that way, if government had decided to not put all of its eggs effectively into the AZ basket and made sure it had a diversity of supply, then we would have been able to start quicker, we would have been able to go much faster when we started, and instead of now seeing these further and further outbreaks, New South Wales in the most scary situation it's been the entirety of COVID, more of those people would be vaccinated, they'd be safer, we wouldn't see the spreads that we're seeing, and states, whether they're going into lockdowns or having to impose extra restrictions, they wouldn't have to do it in the way they're doing it.
All right, Matt Keogh and Holly Hughes, we'll have to leave it there as we approach question time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jade.